Erik Erikson's Psychosocial Theory of Development as presented by Danette Meeks-Hull. The objective of this presentation is to present the theory of development as introduced by Erik Erikson, compare and contrast the theories taught to Erikson by Sigmund Freud, define each of Erikson's stages of development, and introduce my older adult and her stages as she relates to Erikson's theory. Erik Erikson was a German-born American developmental psychologist and a psychoanalyst known for his theory of psychosocial development of human beings. He may be the most famous person who coined the phrase identity crisis. During Erikson's theory, he made a contribution to the field of psychology with his developmental theory. He can be compared to Sigmund Freud in that he claimed that humans develop in stages. Erikson's developed 8 psychosocial stages in which humans develop throughout their entire lifespan. On the slide, you will see that each of these phases or stages are listed on the left, and the ages in which those occur are on the right. According to Erik Erikson's theory of development, during each of the stages in a person's life, there is a psychosocial crisis that causes a turning point in their development. Some of these turning points can be positive and others may be negative in nature. Erikson also theorized that each of these stages in a person's development builds upon the next, ultimately resulting in either a positive or a negative outcome throughout their life. Let's go on to investigate those stages. The stage 1 is trust versus mistrust. This is known as the infant stage or birth through 18 months or a year and a half. During this stage of development, an important role that the child has to go through is an infant is totally dependent upon their caregiver for all nurturing, comfort, life, love, and feeding. This person can be a parent, a grandparent, a sibling, temporary care provider. But however, mistrust can also occur when an infant's sense of security is shaken. The baby may push away, refuse to eat, cry, and not accept nourishment or comfort from their provider. The skill gained during this stage of development is known as hope. Stage 2, autonomy versus shame and doubt, 18 months to 3 years, also known as the toddler stage. The important goal in this stage is toilet training. The toddler will also work on skills to master additional things such as walking, climbing, grasping, and muscle control. If mistakes at this stage are not handled properly by the child's parents or provider, the child can develop shame, doubt, and impulsiveness, which is displayed in temper tantrums and withdrawing from the learning process. Stage 3, initiative versus guilt. This stage occurs during age 3 years to 6 years, or preschool to first grade. The goal in this stage is to develop mentally as well as creatively. Children begin asking the why questions that we all hear about every single detail in their environment. Also called the play stage. Children begin copying their parents when playing. They mirror good and bad behaviors. Behaviors are displayed while they're playing house or rocking a baby, fixing or dismantling the furniture. You see them arguing just like their parents do, siblings or their caregivers. This is often seen in preschools as well as in home. They practice showing this initiative to begin developing their own sense of identity. Children begin to also experience and develop their morals, empathy, and responsibility. For example, little Susie hurts Bobby's feelings. An adult uses this as a learning opportunity. The child sees that Susie has caused Bobby to cry, and she apologizes. In this stage, she's learning empathy. Children are also learning to excel academically during this stage, as they are like a sponge and they absorb absolutely everything that they are told. If the child becomes frustrated during this stage, they can begin to exhibit guilt. Stage 4, industry versus inferiority, 6 years to 12 years of age. The goal that is gained during this stage is known as competence. Children in this stage need assistance from their parents. They are expected to complete homework and take greater responsibilities for their own behavior regulation. When a child excels in this skill, they develop a sense of pride and they are cheered on by their parents as well as their teachers. The child responds to this positive reinforcement and desires to repeat this rewarding behavior. If they do not excel, however, they are pushed beyond their limits by their teachers and peers and parents. They feel as if they're not good enough as their friends or others in the team, etc., or at school. When this happens, they develop an inferiority complex. Stage 5, identity versus role confusion. The goal gained during this stage is loyalty, fidelity, and learning the importance of social relationships. Children in this stage begin taking risks in an effort to explore just who am I as an individual? What am I going to represent? Who am I going to be when I grow up? Teens try to develop their independence from peers and from their parents. They may feel need to fit in or totally separate themselves from a group. Teens will argue in an effort to gain their own identity, test the limits that you often hear parents say. At this stage of development, it is important to encourage them to take part in the community and communicate with trusted, positive role models. Stage 6, intimacy versus isolation. This stage occurs from 18 years to 35. This stage covers the time in one's life known as young adulthood. Erikson's theory teaches that during this stage it is vital for people to explore and develop personal relationships. Sometimes we call this drama. Because each stage of a development builds upon the next, Erikson believed that a strong personal identity was also paramount in this stage. This was also stated by McCarthy in 2013. He added that a missing variable in the pursuit of successful aging is the ability to also know love as well as to give it. Those that are successful will have strong committed relationships, and those that are not have a greater likelihood to suffer from isolation, loneliness, and depression. The skill gained during this stage is love. Now, however, we are going to go on and talk about my older adult that we interviewed. We're going to call this person LP. LP and her husband were very much in love and earned respect of their parents. As we talk about LP, she is actually one of my very good friends. Let's go back a couple of years and look at her life as she was younger. She was raised in a devout Catholic family, the oldest child of 3, and the second generation of Americans who relocated from Ireland. LP was active in her community. She was a St. Francis ambassador and the apple of her father's eye. At 17 years of age, she met and became pregnant with her first child, still in high school. Her family was absolutely devastated. Her mother had a nervous breakdown, and her father and the other students' family insisted that the two of them get married, even though they were only high school seniors. And they even attended a parochial school. However, marriage was the only answer. Following their marriage, however, LP and her husband were very, very happy. They were financially successful and went on to buy their first home and had 2 more kids. However, despite the fact that they were loving and attentive and took part in Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts and coached the sports teams, everything was great. And they were so excited to be parents and to be making a positive life for themselves. Until 1993. LP's husband was diagnosed with cancer and died just a matter of weeks later. She was absolutely shattered and turned to drugs. LP's family was broken apart, and her children spent 5 years being raised by their grandparents. Now let's go on to stage 7, and we'll come back to LP shortly as we compare her to some of Erikson's stages of development. Stage 7 is generativity versus stagnation. This occurs from ages 35 to 60. Generativity is generally associated with raising a family, the ability to be productive in society and give back to the world. By doing so, one establishes a sense of satisfaction and good self-esteem. This is the time when people begin to evaluate their goals in life. They return to school, change career paths, and some even get divorced. There can also become a desire to go beyond oneself and to help the next generation to be successful. Stagnation, however, on the other hand, leads a person to feeling empty and worthless. This skill gained during this stage is known as caring. Now let's reverse back to LP and talk about another conflict during that stage. LP discovered that there was more to life than the death of her husband, so she decided to go to treatment. She went to family therapy with her parents and her children. She brought her children home and devoted her life to being a better mom. She wanted to right all those mistakes that she made, and she promised her family that she'd rebuild their life. She realized, however, that she still felt empty and she missed companionship. Yet she remained single until 2010. LP's mother, again another person, was diagnosed with cancer. Following her quick death, LP went online and sought compassion and understanding from someone. Soon she met a man and was married just after 5 dates. Now let's go back to stage 8. Ego integrity versus despair. Erikson's theory states that during this stage of development, one must come to the terms in their life and their decisions, their physical health, cognitive ability, mistakes, and successes. They must accept their responsibility for their life, which is what LP is doing. She must come to understand their life's journey, like she's doing now. During this final stage, there's a renewed sense of purpose, and it may result in engaging in self-management to remain autonomous. Those who can't, however, come to terms with their life often regret their past choices, and that leaves them with the final existence of consisting of despair. I've also included an attachment to a YouTube video where Disney portrays all of Erik Erikson's theories. This will hopefully help you to remember some of the stages. Erikson's theory limitations that I discovered was that they were very useful in a foundation for me evaluating LP in my recent interview. However, what I noticed was that it limited me with going on to think about a person who had lost their way and they needed to reconnect themselves, and they've changed their life completely around. What I did do was Erikson's theory, I tried to utilize them as best I could. However, the theory did not allow me any direction or guidance after considering the fact that she had found her way back and rediscovered herself and her path in life. When I looked at Freud's theories, there were also limitations in the fact that Freud's theories stopped just after childhood. So that really limited me as well, although there were some similarities in the theories of the two. On the next slide, I have listed those similarities and their differences. Erikson used psychosocial theory, where Sigmund Freud used psychosexual theory. Both of them recognized unconscious development. They developed it in stages, and both had similar age ranges. However, Erikson stopped or went on to continue his into adulthood as well as to death, and Sigmund Freud stopped his at stage 5, which is the genital stage. The following next 4 slides you will see are some of my sources that I used, which were Perry et al., McCarthy in 2013, Haber, and the final one was Seiko. Each of these journal articles that I used expanded on Erikson's theory and went on to help me identify some of the cognitive abilities and complete my evaluation of my older adult. That is the end of my presentation. I hope you've enjoyed it and that you've learned something new. Thanks so much, and God bless.